last man standing between Virginia and complete Republican apocalypse. And he's a speaker, and he has a better than 50% chance, I believe, in maintaining the speakership in 2019. He's also, in my estimation, Virginia's Republican Man of the Year because of what he's done. And he's joining us now as the Virginia General Assembly rolls into town over the next several days. Speaker Cox, great to have you with us.
John, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Okay, let's start with football, and then we'll go to politics. I know you're a Yankees fan, much to my chagrin. You keep us the best team money cannot buy. Right now you're out there buying other players. You just re-signed the Britain or whatever his name is, whatever. But you're also a Cowboys fan. I know that. They're going to L.A.
Going to Rams. Going to L.A. to play the Rams. Feeling good. That was a better draw for us than New Orleans. And so, yeah, my Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since '96. So I'm hoping that changes. I got 4 boys who love the Cowboys, and it's time for them to have a Super Bowl.
All right, well, they're going to Los Angeles. I don't think the Rams are that good, so I think you have a shot in the game. And especially Ben Tribbett said they're going to get blown out. But he also said Alabama would win by 4 touchdowns. They would have the spread covered at the half. And he said you could go to bed. I did go to bed, but if you had Alabama, you went to bed a loser. So now that Ben picked L.A., I love the Cowboys in this game.
Well, Ben didn't talk to Trevor Lawrence, I don't think.
I don't think he did. He was way wrong on that. Okay, let's clear something right now. There's a Facebook post yesterday saying that Speaker Cox, I don't even know who it is. Somebody sent it to me, so I don't have time to read the author and scroll through it. But somebody sent me this Facebook post saying that Kirk Cox is negotiating with Governor Ralph Northam on restrictive anti-gun legislation in Virginia. True or fake news?
Fake news, and frankly, very frustrating fake news. I'm certainly not negotiating a backroom deal with the governor. I speak with the governor, obviously, and there are things that we have worked on as far as compromises go, that are key things. But, I've been very clear with him on any meeting that I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. You can look at my voting history. And so it's frustrating when things come in, when they have not even a grain of, any truth to them. But that is absolutely false.
Okay, false. You have absolutely no interest in that. So, look, these things get put out there in order to stir things up. I'm going to try to find out who the author is. I just glanced at it. But thanks for clearing that up. We're with Speaker Kirk Cox, Republican from Colonial Heights. He's the Republican Speaker of the House of Delegates in Virginia, the last bastion of opportunity the Republicans have because everything is up in 2019, legislature and the Senate. Let's get to politics, and then I'll get into this session.
Sure.
I've got your chances of holding the House of Delegates in November at better than 50%, probably like 55 or 60%. Am I right?
I think you're right. I mean, we, unfortunately certainly lost some seats in the last cycle, but I would say that if you look at the seats, knock on a lot of doors. Our recruitment, which even has surprised me, has been A+. And frankly, we even had 3 or 4 tremendous women candidates this time, especially down my way. And so I think the combination of A+ candidates, just hard work and messaging, we're going to talk about that. But I will say that every major good initiative that's come out the last 10 years is originating in the House of Delegates. And we're going to talk tax cuts today, but that's obviously one of the regulations. A lot of the things the president's doing on the national level, especially on taxes and regulations, we're doing on the state level. And that's helped the economy boom nationally, and it'll continue to help Virginia boom.
We're with Speaker of the House of Delegates from Virginia, Republican Kirk Cox from Colonial Heights. Mr. Speaker, I was at the Democratic Roundtable yesterday with the usual suspects, Marston, Saslaw, etc., from the state themselves to like your tax plan. I mean, after they got through of, we don't care what Kirk Cox says, when you got to the specifics of your tax plan, they were like, well, it kind of makes sense. And we probably need to do something to align Virginia taxes with the federal taxes. whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, it is the law. And so we have to figure this out. So although they were not complimentary of you personally, which is fine, it's partisan, they really couldn't say anything bad about your plan. Can you lay out for our listeners what your tax plan is in 2019 and the fact that it's retroactive and what the pieces of it are that are going to help average working class Virginians?
Yeah, the first thing I think folks need to understand is the governor basically is proposing $2.2 billion in spending, which is the most I think I can ever remember in a short session. But here's what people need to know: that $1.2 billion of that basically is paying for on the backs of the middle class. People go, how does that work? And it's pretty simple. With the federal tax cut, and that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of revenue, we have an interesting thing. In Virginia, if you take the federal standard deduction, which the President and Congress greatly upped, which has helped tremendously, to $24,000, you're forced to take the state standard deduction, which is very low, $6,000. So all those middle class folks, two married teachers that have a home, two policemen, et cetera, they basically can't itemize the way that works, and that's your home mortgage deduction, health care costs, your property taxes. So that's going to cost that person on average $805 if they cannot itemize, if they have to take the low standard deduction. That is a tremendous hit. That's about 600,000 people. So number one, we're going to allow you, no matter what, to itemize at the state level. Number two, we're going to raise all standard deduction, which is low. And so that will mean about $100 for even, folks that, maybe do not itemize, will be more lower middle class. A lot of people know that you have something called SALT, which is your sort of state and local tax deduction, and we're going to make sure that there's no cap on that. So those are the three big components. But in all, that is about a little bit over $900 million. And so what you'll then get, which I think is key, you'll get the benefit of the Trump tax cut on the state level, and which I think will help tremendously. And please remember, our revenues are growing a lot. And so we can still do targeted spending. This is not low to everyone. We're not going to do K-12 spending, et cetera. So it's a good balance. It really needs to be done. If not, the middle class is paying for all that spending, basically, in the form of a tax increase.
All right, so Mr. Speaker, I got two of the three. I didn't catch the third, so I just want to be clear for our audience so they really understand what your tax cut package is going into 2019 General Assembly. And I also want to point out that you want to make this retroactive, right? You want to make this back to 2018 so people can take advantage of it now, right?
Yeah, it's too basic what we'll do with that piece, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. It's too late to change the tax law for 2018 filing season, but we're going to make it where you can claim a deduction on next year's taxes to make up for your lost itemizations this year. So you will be made whole. It'll just be a year late.
Okay, so let's go over the three components again. Number one, big picture, you want to align the state tax code with the federal tax code as it relates to the Trump tax cut, which is obviously driving economic growth, which is why you have a revenue surplus. And so you got three pieces of this, as I can paraphrase it back to our listeners. So number one, you want to give people in Virginia the opportunity to itemize at the state level, regardless of if they itemized at the federal level. Because right now, you can't do one without the other. So if you take the standard deductions at the federal level, you have to take it at the state level, and it's way out of whack. So for me, just for anybody listening, if you took the federal standard deductions, you could then go back and still itemize with your state taxes, right?
That is spot on. And what's going to happen is with that big increase, which was great, in the federal standard deduction, most people are going to choose to take that, and they should. And a lot of people then that would have had the ability to itemize will not be able to. So you're exactly right. No matter what, you'll be able to itemize your state taxes, which will help the middle class tremendously.
Right. So who could be opposed to choice? The first question I have, if you were a Democrat opposed to this, or anybody, never Trump or whatever, you're opposed to this, I mean, you're giving people the choice. You want to itemize, you itemize. You don't want to itemize, don't itemize. Who could be opposed to giving taxpayers additional choice in doing their taxes. I don't see where that wouldn't get a single vote, other than people would say, well, you pay less taxes, and so we want more of your money. That would be the only reason not to be in favor of that. Okay, so the second thing you said is the SALT, which is your property tax deduction and no cap on that. Explain that.
Yeah, one of the things that, and since the Trump tax cut did so many things that obviously helped taxpayers, it did put a $10,000 cap on SALT. And so obviously with their pretty robust package, we decided we could afford to take that cap off of SALT. And so there's just no cap on SALT under our proposal. So that would sort of be the second thing.
Walk through an example that somebody would have. Just give us a layman's example of that.
It'd be pretty simple. So if your SALT obligation was over $10,000, you would be capped if we did not do that. If we simply conformed to what the feds were doing, basically you'll get the full, just like, you get a lot of full deductions now, you would get a full, under our plan, basically, no matter what your SALT obligation is, you'll get that full SALT deduction, that state and local tax, et cetera, deduction, which I think is important to a lot of people, especially if you're in an area, to your point, that you pay high property tax, et cetera. That's a lot of your tax burden. So that's one of the smaller pieces, John, of the plan. That's probably about $45 million. But I still think it's an important component, especially for those high property tax areas.
All right, so everybody knows what SALT means, and I didn't lay it out. That's state and local taxes. So basically, whatever your state and local taxes are, there's no cap on the amount of deductions that you're able to take with that. And, depending on the area that you're in and what your property taxes are, local taxes, those can be pretty high. So the 10,000 cap is taken off, right? So that's going to affect I think the records show in Virginia that affects about 30% of taxpayers, 70% it has no impact on. It affects an average of about 30%. So that's a big deal. All right, the third item I didn't quite catch. What was that?
We're raising the standard deduction in Virginia, both for couples, and as I said, it was $6,000. So we're raising both the standard deduction for individuals and couples to $4,000 for individuals and around $8,000 for couples. And so that will mean about $115 in your pocket if you do the standard deduction. And so we wanted to make sure we also had that component in there for those people that obviously chose not to itemize. So I would say our tax cut obviously covers the broad middle class and what I would consider the lower middle class. And I want to go back to a point you made, which I think is very important. So why would Democrats oppose this? Right. And a lot of them would say that it's what they always do with President Trump, and that is this is all for the rich. And so they want to try to basically say that person who makes $100,000, $125,000, $135,000, $140,000 is rich. And John, two school teachers who make $55,000 is not exactly an overwhelming amount of money. You have 2 or 3 kids. You have a mortgage. You are not rich. You are right in the middle of the middle class. You can walk into almost any public school in Virginia. You see that situation all the time. And I think basically what they're basically saying is this is for people that are wealthier, et cetera. And that's just not that's just so out of touch. That's the people that pay the most taxes, and that's the people who will be affected the most by our tax plan. That's what we should want.
Well, number one, raising the standard deduction. If I decide if I'm not going to itemize and I take the standard deduction, I don't care what amount of money you're making. The standard deduction comes right off the top. So whether you're making $40,000 or $140,000 as a couple, if I can take $8,000 off instead of, what is it now, 6? How much is this couple now? 6, right? So now I can take 8 off. That comes right off the top. It doesn't matter. I could be making $27,000. I'm still going to take $8,000 or $4,000 off. I mean, that affects everybody who's filing state taxes. So the argument that it's for the rich or for that absolutely makes no sense. Look, they're going to oppose it because your name is on it, right? Just like they oppose the Trump tax cuts because his name's on it. And so it defies logic. And it's all about politics now. They're trying to vie for ousting you as speaker. This is a great bill. It helps people, and it helps all people in Virginia. But the Democrats are going to oppose it simply for political reasons because they don't want you going into November with a tax cut plan that people like. So that's why they're going to try to stop it. And you guys have got your work cut out for you. I got a couple more minutes. I'm with Kirk Cox. He is the Speaker of the House of Virginia, Republican from Colonial Heights. One more question. I've only got 2 minutes. Lee Carter from, I guess, Manassas, Democrat, wants to repeal right to work, which means Virginia has a long-standing right to work law. You don't have to join a union, et cetera. You can get hired, fired, doesn't matter. Carter, who's a socialist and part of it, wants to repeal that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's about the worst thing you can do. I've been up in Northern Virginia myself the last few days, but just, talking a lot about business issues and talking to a lot of chamber folks, and they go, that's the worst thing that could happen to them. I mean, the right to work law, not allowing you to have compulsory union membership, is just key for business across the board. And, Lee Carter is also pushing for, public sector unionship, et cetera. You can imagine with states that have teachers that go on strike. That is just so bad for Virginia. What angers me, hate to use that word, is David Toscano stood on the floor several years ago and saying, you guys have got to stop screaming the sky's falling on right to work. We don't put bills in like that. That's not true. And here's the bill. And Lee Carter put it in. If you, look at it, what a lot of liberals are saying, they very much want that. Some are trying to be a little bit coy about it because, to your point, they want the majority. But I will tell you, if you allow them to have the majority, you'll have things like right to work. You'll see so much anti-business stuff so quickly because their base will demand it. And guys like Lee Carter are more than happy to put it in and be the champions for it.
We're out of time. Speaker of the House, Kirk Cox. Hey, more information, go to kirkcox.com, kirkcox.com. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us. I love your tax cut plan. I love the fact that it's backdoor retroactive. Great plan. Good luck with it.